Welcome to Lesson 3 in Module 8. So before we actually get started with our painting, I want us to mix one more of these really neutralized greeny purples. So I took some of that Italian green ochre and I'm adding a little bit of that cinnabar green light to it so that I begin to green it up just a little bit more. Because in this painting we're going to be working with a storm over a marsh in the fall, and the marsh grass on that cloudy day has a good deal of green still in it, so we need just a tiny little bit more of that cinnabar green light. So we have a contrast to the mixture we made with yellow ochre. There we go. So you can see as they sit next to each other that this one is both lighter and greener. There we go. That is the only additional color we're going to need from the ones that we used in Lesson 2. So we are going to jump in first with our no-tan and establish where the horizon line is in the painting, and then the big main mass of clouds. And for the no-tan color, I am actually going to use on the land that mixture we made with the purple and the green ochre. It is not quite as dark as the Italian terre verte and the violet, and we don't want to go quite that dark because remember we have lower contrast when we are working with atmospheric conditions like these. So I'm going to use that to block in where that main landmass is, because you can actually read that entire landmass as being no-tan. So I need to bring that line down. So if you ever need to adjust a line where it has gone too high, just push it back with a knife. Even if you're using a brush, you can always push it back with a knife and then come back in on top of it a bit. You can also, once you've pushed it back, wipe that edge and get rid of the excess paint. So I can lower that horizon line really quickly. Remember, this first dark layer needs to go on really thinly so that you're not having to put thick paint on top of thick paint at the very beginning. So remember to work from thin to thick, whether you're working with a brush or with a knife, thin to thick. It's that old mantra, thin to thick, general to specific, dark to light. There we have the basic, just the very basic land mass. And then remember, you look at the photograph, there is a small little island. Come back and break it up some more. Just let the knife kind of create the island for you that sits right on the edge of the horizon, because we're right at eye level. So let that knife kind of play and make that edge. Don't overthink it. And then we're going to work on the mass of the cloud, the darkest mass of the cloud. So in doing that, you're not still going to use that same purple. We're going to use the darkest color of the sky, which is this gray blue up here. And then we're going to lay the mass in. And one of the reasons I have this turned upside down is so I won't get too caught up in what I know instead of what I see. And we're going to work really fast to blot this in. So I want us to work on speeding up. And this is a cloud that is full of rain, hanging low on the horizon, and just about to dump. In fact, in the distance, it is dumping rain out over the marsh. So just quickly blot that in. And don't worry about being over precise with it. A little flecks of it will go all the way over. Okay, there we have the darkest darks of the landmass and the darkest darks of the sky. Super quickly blocked in. Then we're going to work on blocking in with our lightest blue. In spite of it being a cloudy day, there is still some light blue in there. So we're going to block that in. Again, super quickly. Don't overthink this. Just block it in. Don't worry about edges. Just get paint on there. And remember, we're painting a rainstorm, so having some soft edges kind of working their way in is not a bad thing. So this is that really light blue. It's just a little bit of phthalo, some of that medium blue mixture with white. And we're using it to quickly block in that lightest value in the sky. Now we got that in real fast. Then we're going to get the area of the sky that is close to the horizon line that's meeting that mass of trees that are on the island. This is going to be the warm light gray. This is where the rain is already starting. So I'm going to blot that in. I'm going to get close to the landmass, but not right up on it. Actually, you can turn it and block it in so that it's hitting the bottom edge of the big cloud. Again, it's still fairly thin. You don't want to go thick yet. Once you've gotten that blocked, then we can get that far edge. So if you're working on an easel, turn the painting. Makes it far easier. I'm getting right up on those edges. And working really fast, not overthinking it. That one right there I'm going to get with a smaller knife. Then I need to add a little thicker paint in there. You can also go back to the darker, and where you need, you can begin to thicken that up just a little bit. You hear the sirens outside my studio. So if it softens up like it did naturally right there, go with it. Let it happen. This edge needs to become softer. You don't want to leave it hard like that, because this is where you're going to end up having the rain begin to come down. So it should be particularly softening up here where this is rain that is beginning to hit the land in the distance. So go ahead and blend that in a little bit. And we'll come back and finesse that after we get a little further on our land. But automatically, we've begun to set up some shape relationships, color relationships, and color masses that give us an indication that there's rain falling over here, because this implied edge of the cloud has become soft. So think about softness indicating atmospheric moisture, because there's more of it between you and what you're looking at. So this is lighter, it's softer, but still within that same color family. Now what I want to do next is begin to put in the color that actually goes along that back line, which is our lighter green. So right back where this little bit of edge hits that distant line of islands, and take the green and let it blend in some. Which is giving us an additional value that we didn't have to mix, because it's mixing straight on the painting. Start pulling that down, and it'll begin to create that sense of there being grass there. I'm blending it some to make it go a little thinner before I get the darker colors. Then I'm going to take some more of that middle ochre and violet that we mixed. So this is close to the same color as ochre, the green ochre is out of the tube. And I'm going to begin to work that in these shadowed areas. So it's a little bit thicker than the purple we had before. But I'm going to let that purple show through in spots. I'm not going to cover it all the way up. So be sure to let some of that purple show through. And we can take a little bit of the ochre and yellow ochre that we mixed, and to spread it out sometimes to get a little bit thinner amount of it on there. And you can use that to break these values up a little bit more. Break the color masses up a little bit more. So look for where the lighter part is on the mass of the marsh grass. You can go back in and add some subtle areas of light, but keep that contrast down. Don't want it to be too strong. If you need to, you can play back and forth a little bit between those colors and values and build that texture up. Now we need to deal with the color for the tree masses on the islands there. And we don't want to leave them that dark. Remember, our contrast needs to be lower when we're talking about diffused light. So we're going to need to bump the values on those distant islands up a little bit. And they are in the same family as this color right here. And we can take that and we can, again, and spreading it out and then getting a really thin layer of it on there. So I've got a thin line. Because what I want to do is just barely pull up to create those islands, the lighter values of the islands. Now, as it comes over, it's going to be a little bit darker. These are the ones that are closer to us. So at that point, then I'm going to probably reach for a little tiny bit of this and blend it into this one. So we have something that's almost halfway in between. Here comes the next one. And then we can pull a little bit lighter. On top of the darker. So look at what a sense of light we've already established just right there with having those values so close together. Now when I turn it, then I can see that this line right here is coming down a little too far. So I can take, instead of painting it out or scraping back on the island color, I can take some of my lighter green and pull it right up. So I can tweak that edge just a little bit. I got a little too much right there. Go back and adjust. So now I can play with the rest of the sky a little bit and begin to work some other colors in there. So for our middle sky color, I am going to this ochre and gray mixture up here, and I'm going to pull it down really quickly. Into the sky right there. So looking at where we have some variation in that sky, and pulling that middle value into it. So over here, a little bit of lighter blue. It should be in the lighter, warmer gray. Goes into this area. Again, keep it really quick, and it will have the softness that a cloud should have. Now, one of the reasons I use the violet, the slightly more violet one, the warmer one, is that that's going to connect it to all of the violets that are down in here. So I need to add a little bit more of the cool one right here. Pull that warm one down a little too far, so you can always go back and adjust and tweak. Then think about adding a little bit of this lighter warm gray up into here. And we're going to need a little bit of it over here. So decide where you need some soft edges and put those in, and do the dance back and forth between light and dark. Turn the painting as you're working on it. Let the direction of the mark indicate some of the movement of the clouds. And remember, you can dance back and forth between the light and the dark. So then we need to blend this right here a little bit more. So that we soften the bottom of that cloud. So just in the time that we've been working on it, that paint is set up a little bit so that it's much easier. Go back and carefully soften the edge there a little bit. Other than some minor tweaks, like I need to add a little bit of landmass right there. We're almost done. So for that landmass, it is very light. So I'm just going to hold my knife, use my small one, and go right in there. Then I can take a look, pull off a little bit here. This edge over here feels like it needs to be just a little bit darker. There we go. And that is our rain falling across the distant edge of the marsh. You can leave it as it is right now. You could actually go in and over here, if you wanted to imply even more rain, soften that edge right there, just a little bit. So there are a number of different tweaks you could make there. Leave that up to you. I'm still going to darken up this edge over here just a little bit more. So one of the things you want to do on a constant basis is compare and contrast. So look at the relationship of light to dark. Is the landmass lighter or darker, the islands in the distance, than the marsh? Where it's lighter, make sure you capture those values. It's lighter right over here. But as it goes back into the distance, it gets dark again. So think about those transitions of light to dark. There you have it. Dive on into the lesson, and I look forward to seeing what you do with rain falling across the marsh. If you feel like it, post your paintings into the Facebook group. And meanwhile, happy painting.